I want to talk about skill building and embarrassment. In the beginning of building a new skill, many times, depending on how many skills you want to build, you'll find yourself being just completely embarrassed, and you'll look back at your beginning and you'll cringe because it's just really bad. But if you're willing to go through that phase to get to, a level of competency or, excellence even, and if you're willing to go through that, you'll start being desensitized to the embarrassment that's going to come in the beginning. Because, depending on the skill, man, it could be rough in the beginning. I can remember a lot of times just being totally embarrassing. And I made a video on skill building in the dip, but this is actually before the dip. So, it could be at the very, very beginning when you're just really bad. And it could be fun looking back, but, it could be rough. So, I definitely have some stories, some embarrassing stories. I remember my first time going through that was really, maybe the worst time was football. I had decided that I wanted to do football, and at the time I really didn't know why, but looking back I can definitely see why. I remember people kept just telling me to hit the gym if you wanted to lose weight. I wanted to lose weight bad, so I was just I was asking people, and people were like, just hit the gym, man. Especially the guys were like, just hit the gym and you'll be fine. So I was like, man, football, shoot, that's definitely hitting the gym. I see how hard these people work. And I know I had seen it I had seen it around. And so that was one reason. Another reason was I wanted to see the behind the scenes of an athlete, because I was kind of a nerd. So I was into the books, I was in my head. And yeah, I did well. I did very well in school. But I kind of wanted to explore the other side of it and see what that side of it was like, because it was two totally different worlds. And as I'm after being in it, I can tell it was two totally different worlds. There's no, you're not, the test is really your on field performance, but other than that, you don't really have a grade. It's not graded. They just going by what they see, so it's not graded. There's no quizzes, there's no homework. Actually, there is homework, but it's not really told to you as it's homework. You just gotta know the playbook and study the playbook, but they don't tell you it's homework. So it's not really homework and tests and quizzes, and there was really no cheating aspect to it. I remember in school I was cheating a lot. So yeah, there was we would find kind of creative ways to cheat. And there was none of that in football. So that was very interesting. But I remember in the beginning, man, when I first get there, I'm totally out of shape. Totally. And I believe my teammates they were recovering from the season, so they had the season to really get in shape, and they were just maintaining their in-shapedness during the off season. But I came in the off season, so it was off season football. So I was just totally out of shape. I had come from nothing, no other athletic background at all, except I think when I was 6, my mother put me in basketball, and I like basketball, and I kept playing basketball, and I would play basketball in the gyms, but it was just totally different between when you train to play a sport and when you don't. When you casually play a sport, it's just a whole different level than when you're training to play a sport. So yeah, I was coming from I felt like nothing. And it showed. In the beginning, I was just, during the classes, we had football as a period of one of the 7 periods we had in school, and football was just tough, man. I remember not finishing the exercises, and I remember a lot of teammates and coaches just yelling at me and just being like, man, you're going to finish. I remember one time we had to go outside and run a 300, which was one lap around, And usually they did it by positions. Like the wide receivers would go, and the linemen would go, and the defensive ends, and all the positions would do it together. And I remember out of the linemen, I was just like, I had gone 3/4 of the way. I remember we had to jog around it, and it was like we couldn't walk. We could jog or run, but we couldn't walk. So 3/4 around it, I just stopped, and I feel like I can't go anymore. I'm done. That's it. We're done here. And the rest of the linemen had finished, of course, and they had finished way earlier than me, and I just stopped. And I started walking, I think, and the coach ran out, man. And this was one of those crazy coaches, man. I don't know if y'all have had a crazy coach or a crazy mentor, or somebody crazy over you, and that was crazy, man. That was, looking back, that was hilarious, because he came out and he started just screaming at the top of his lungs, man, you gonna finish this? He was cussing, just I could feel his aura right in my ear as I'm walking, and I'm like, oh damn, let me just start. I felt like the embarrassment was amped up like by 10. So when he came out there, so I started jogging and I started running, and I finished, and I'm like, dang, I really didn't think I had any more left after looking at it, but somehow that all just came out of me, and that's what taught me, like, that was one lesson I learned that day. I was like, man, I could really push myself past what I thought I could put out. But yeah, that was pretty damn embarrassing, and that kept happening, not to that extent, but I was definitely not finishing exercises, and definitely getting yelled at a lot. But I kept getting better as I kept going and pushing through it, and eventually I got to a point where I was on the same level as the rest of the team. So that was pretty cool to go through that. And I remember somebody was like, dang, man, you came a long way, man. I remember in the beginning you were struggling, and now you're one of us. And when he said that, after that, I kind of quit, because I felt like I had earned a lot of respect in the locker room. So, and I knew football wasn't anything I wanted to do long term. I really was like, I don't know, for some reason it just didn't feel right to me, and like worth the learning curve that I'd have to go through to be really good. So, and I mean, I knew with athletes, there's so much competition. So, I was like, I just didn't feel like something I was aligned with. So I was happy I made it to that point, and like I had earned the respect of a lot of people. So when I quit, I didn't have to look them in the eye and get that look that, oh man, you quit super early, man, what's wrong with you? And maybe I still did get that look, but they didn't really know my intentions on it. So yeah, that was very interesting. And it was very embarrassing in the beginning. Another story was performing. Like when I started performing, that was pretty embarrassing in the beginning. And it got embarrassing when I got to a stage with lots of people, because when I was in the small setting, like maybe I go to a party with like 9 or 10 people, or even like big parties. That wasn't really that tough, and usually I would get feedback like, oh man, you need to start going to a big stage, and you need to hit the big stage. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll practice hitting the big stage. So I did that, and man, it was I remember in the beginning it was embarrassing. So I think this was a dueling piano bar in San Antonio, and man, I think it felt, I didn't really take count, but it felt like about 200 or 300 people in there. And I remember I went with about 5 friends, and the performers before me had rocked the crowd. I mean, the crowd was hype. And I think there were like 4 piano players, and they all sang, and they were just hype. They were just excited, amped up. The performers had played very high quality songs and very upbeat songs. And I remember it was my turn, and I kind of brought the energy down because I was playing R&B and jazz. So, and I don't think that was a bad thing. It was just maybe how I approached it. But I remember kind of the energy kind of dying down, and I didn't sing loud enough. I can remember that very clearly. I did not sing loud enough, and they were telling me I wasn't singing loud and they couldn't hear, and I can feel the frustration of the crowd. But I felt like if I sung louder, I'd be screaming, and it really wouldn't sound very well. Like, it wouldn't sound very good. So, you know, as I'm playing, they're telling me they can't hear, and it's just, I can feel the frustration. And eventually, a waitress comes up and she takes the mic and she starts singing while I'm playing. I think this was like Alicia Keys' song, which I don't know why I picked Alicia Keys to play that at that particular venue. I probably should have played, if I was gonna play something, you know, upbeat, I probably should have played, you know, something more, definitely more my style. Like Alicia Keys, the song I wanted to, I think If I Ain't Got You, that was the song I played. And so yeah, I started playing that song and I started singing it, and it just didn't really go well. I don't know why I decided to play that song, but she came in as a performer. She took the mic and she started singing, man. She was really good, and she sung very loud. No, I guess she had been in the, you know, she had been there quite a while. So she kind of knew, you know, the ins and outs. Maybe she had sung before, I don't know. But she was a very beautiful woman, came in, started singing a song, I was playing, and it just worked. And I was very thankful for her, because the crowd started to, you know, go my way. Yeah, the crowd started to shift, but, you know, I had some friends there. They were disappointed in me, but, you know, she definitely was the reason why the show went on. So, yeah, man, shout outs to that woman right there. That was it was definitely embarrassing, because, man, I didn't want to have that tension where the crowd was just, you know, where they weren't comfortable. I remember my first time performing at the House of Blues. It was an open mic, and I can remember I thought I had killed it. I was like, man, you really did good. But, you know, looking back at the video, somebody had taken a video, and, you know, I realized that I was in my head. And actually, I think this video might be on this channel. As, you know, it might still be up, but, you know, it was definitely, I was in my head. And, you know, that was the feedback I got from that. And, yeah, it was a feedback, not actually even in the venue. I didn't really get that feedback. You know, I could just tell that something was off. And I remember people kept telling me I was nervous. And I was like, dang, I didn't feel nervous, but, you know, I definitely looked like it on the video. But I was more so in my head. And, you know, and it took me back to the first feedback I got in a place called The Generator. I don't know if I mentioned The Generator, but yeah, in The Generator, that was my first performance, and somebody giving me feedback like, it was like a little coffee shop in Garland, Texas, and somebody had told me, like one of my friends had told me, that you need to let it all out and be really vulnerable and just leave it all on the stage. So it took me back to that feedback, because that's what I really need to do when I hit the big stage, was just let it all out and not really concern myself with what's outside and, you know, looking good and everything. I just need to really, like, get in that mode where I'm just letting it all out. And so that was embarrassing, but it taught me a lot. And, you know, the next time I hit the stage, the next time I hit the House of Blues stage, man, I killed it. Next time, and I'm really trying to push myself now. I'm kind of trying to get with a band and seeing how that goes. But I need to upgrade my skills musically, so that's that. And, you know, there's some other embarrassing stories I could tell you, but the point is to just understand that if you want to build skills, a lot of times you'll run into those embarrassing points. But then you'll look back and you'll have like this string of skills and this string of experiences and stories, and, you know, it'll help other people relate to you. And it's so beneficial. I'm glad I was willing to suffer through those embarrassing times to get to, a level of competency. And I'm still working on it. And if I'm probably gonna run into some more embarrassing times. With publishing, I actually think I'm running into a pretty embarrassing time now. I lost a lot of money on putting in to create books, and it's because I think I created books that I liked instead of that the audience I want to serve likes. But that's another story. Basically, the point is to just understand that a lot of times with these skills, there's gonna be embarrassment. I had a video called Skill Building and the Dip, and the embarrassment is before the dip. Like, you usually hit the dip after the embarrassing portion. The embarrassing portion probably is in the very beginning, where it's just new, and it's where it definitely helps to go through it with supportive people. So when you're face down on the ground and just embarrassed, you don't have somebody like world starring you, or somebody recording you and putting out all your business, where you sucked, and now millions and millions of people get to laugh at you, and yeah, so that's all I wanted to say, and I'll see you tomorrow.